Hello, everyone. Glad y'all able to join us tonight. We got a good topic about processing crime scenes, and we're going to be looking at vehicles since that's one of the topics, and had a lot of interest, and people uh, uh, like the CSI series that we did on the outdoor crime scenes. And since the topic, and everybody's been commenting and sent me some emails about what would they find if they processed a vehicle that would be associated with the Delphi. And went out and started doing some testing last week and finished up this week and got the all the pictures taken and processed and so that we could have us a show. But tonight, as we go through the presentation and everything, um, everyone in chat, as always, no names, no initials of any persons of interest or suspects. If you have that information, pass that along to the law enforcement, to the ones that can do something about it. And if you have the information to uh, uh, put this end in this case on fast track, that's what we need to do. Respect each other as we go through in the chat and everybody's discussing. Respect the mods and everything, and we're going to have hopefully a good show. And as we started a little bit earlier tonight for the fact that I'm going to be hosting or for Kristen again later after this show. And so I didn't want to cut this show because normally with the CSI topics, it runs a little bit longer. And so I wanted to make sure all my community have a chance to discuss and look at and watch and not be cut short. But you can follow me over after our presentation and our show. We'll be over there with her at 9. So I've got another long night, but anything I can do to help support her, I most certainly want to do. And so with that being said, we'll get started. As always, as a little bio, this is Mrs. Steve, and I'm Steve, and I'm retired law enforcement. I had 20 years of service. Started off working in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During those 20 years, I had training in all aspects of law enforcement, including SWAT, and became a state certified crime scene investigator that helped my investigative career immensely. And I worked all different types of cases, from simple crimes and then burglaries and even up to homicides. But after I retired and started seeing what was happening on the internet with the web sleuth world and the true crime world, I thought that I had some interest in becoming an ambassador for law enforcement, and have done so. And hopefully I'm doing the best I can, and I'm hoping I'm helping as many people as I can to understand how law enforcement approaches certain things, thought processes, how we look at crimes, how we process stuff, and and hopefully something crosses over and with the true crime community, and they're able to use that information to possibly have an impact. Because law enforcement is going to rely upon us once they understand that we're here for a certain purpose, and we're not here to fight and destroy anything, but we're here to assist them. And some departments recognize that, some departments haven't, but we're heading in that direction, and we need to. But tonight, this is a couple. This is my dummies I use a lot. On here, I did some testing, and whenever I do testing, I use my synthetic blood that we use, and I go out and create blood spatter on these clothing articles. I put them on the dummies, see what they look like, create these blood transfers. I'll do everything from handprints to low velocity blood spatter, which is simply that I'll soak my hand with the synthetic blood, clap it close to a target in a certain direction, and you'll get some low velocity blood spatter. And then, of course, when you go on the other side, you can do everything from hand imprints, transfers with weapons. You can have passive blood transfers. You can have arterial sprays. And these are the two that I used on my test here. And I did one because with the Delphi murders of Libby and Nabby, we don't know what the actual crime scene looked like. And we don't know, other than what was alluded to in the search warrant, that when the FBI says that they believe the offender would have had a transfer of some type of blood onto them. We just don't know how much. With the one that we did recently about his clothing and everything, it revealed that he could have a large amount of blood transfer on his person and walk those trails and go unnoticed, and for no one being the wiser. And it's just due to the color of the clothing that he was wearing. That's not to say that he didn't or might have not prepared and had taken off those outer layers. But even if he hadn't took the outer layers off and just walked out, there was a high probability that no one would have noticed any of the blood stains on his clothing. I did this one with a white shirt, so you can see that with the, if you go in there and blow them up on the low velocity side, they're very small droplets, and there's a low transfer. But I did that, as you'll see, that somewhere between the low velocity and the transfer arterial spray, two dummies here side by side, that somewhere's in there is where more than likely the clothing of bridge guy lays. It's in there inside those parameters somewhere. We just don't know. And so I did this, and when you see I get to multiple different types of items that we tested, so that when bridge guy, if he got into a vehicle and he was in a vehicle, there's certain things in a vehicle that you normally touch, and those are the things that we process. And as you'll see, I found some things that were quite interesting to me. Found one thing that pretty well surprised me. I didn't know that, I didn't know how well the walking would do, but we'll see that here in just a moment. These are the boots. The boots on the left are the boots I was wearing. These boots on the left, from the time that what you see here of the daylight ones, that's in full light with a picture made of them, those boot soles are already, they have the blood stains on them. If you can see any of the stains, can you see any stains in that?
There's a few shades of dark, but other than that, no.
And that's the thing is that whenever I did these tests, and once it dries, some of this blood stain, it's hard to see with the human eye. The one on the right is when I hit it with luminol in a darkened room. You can see all that blue is what blood of the synthetic blood that I used. It lit up like a Christmas tree. And so these two boots, there's nothing that happened to them between these two pictures other than I took it to a dark room, hit it with luminol, and photographed it. And so you can see the difference of that. If the offender walked in blood, either in a passive pool of blood, which in blood spatter is just a pool of blood that's lying there, or even through areas that there was some types of.
We got a car that just pulled up outside.
Okay.
Let me go check it.
Yeah, it'd be fine. But anyway, having visitors. But and so when we're looking at these, that bridge guy's clothing and his boots, that if you're at a crime scene and you're walking around a crime scene, and there's any type of blood transfer or blood patterns, or arterial spray, or any type of blood on the ground, if you walk through it, it transfers to your shoes and then, or to your boots, whatever you're wearing, and then you'll track it. And you can track it even on the leaves and on the ground for a ways until it gets either, it's wiped clean due to travel over different materials, through the leaves, through the grass, over the dirt, that it gets absorbed and gets taken away, and it ceases to continue a blood trail. It only can do it as long as there's enough blood to do a transfer, is what you'll get with the luminol. But inside the boot, up in those areas, those creases and in and those little cracks and crevices, the blood can be and will stay there and can stay there for a long time. And when you hit with luminol, you'll see it, just like these boots here. And I'll keep these boots and I'll be wearing them for the next, until I wear them out. And occasionally I'll hit them with luminol, and we'll see how that goes on this test too. And because that's another test I'm doing. I still have my woods outside crime scene I'm currently also, and I'll go up there in about another month or two and process it again and see how the blood stains and the blood patterns occur are handling the weather. And it should be interesting on that also. All right. But this is the floor mat, one of the floor mats I chose to use after I had stepped into a passive pool of blood, and then beside it, I had done another test. And whereas I poured into a grassy area, just randomly, blood or synthetic blood, and I walked through it. And then I continued to walk for a mile. And during that little hike, I walked through grass, I walked through woods, I walked up and down a gravel road, back through woods, back to grass. And after I came back, I stepped onto this floor mat. And I stood on that floor mat, rocking back and forth about 30 minutes, trying to simulate any type of movements that the boots would have on a floor mat inside a vehicle, moving and stacking, whatever. Then I took the boots off and I left them on this floor mat for 24 hours. When I brought it in and I processed it with luminol, there was nothing that transferred over to the mat. But doesn't mean that now the boots are lit up with it, but that dried blood did not go, or the synthetic blood did not transfer over to this due to that washing, brushing, wiping of that long extended travels. But as I went in and did additional tests, you'll see that there are some tests that work relatively well and work really well, actually. This is another floor mat that I used. I had, just like I told you, this is a fresher stain, and I didn't walk the mile. What I did is the one that says passive pool, I stepped into a platter or a little bowl of synthetic blood and instantly stepped on the floor mat, which showed, and as you can see on the floor mat, it's absolutely, you can tell exactly what it is. The one on the left where it says stained ground, that was some that I had, once again, I just laid down a area within a grassy area with blood stained area, and I walked through it three times, and then I walked for about 50 to 60 yards, came back and stood on the mat, which you can't really tell that's a shoe print on the mat itself or on the stained ground that I have marked here. But once I brought it down into the dark room and I sprayed it, it had a pretty good result, as you can see. Of course, the passive pool, it's good and solid. The stained ground one, you can see where it wiped away some of the blood as I had moved through the grassy area and came back and stood. And but once you hit it with luminol, it lit up like a Christmas tree once again. And I did this to show the extremes, that if you get lucky enough, and if bridge guy messed up enough and law enforcement gets lucky enough, that when they process these vehicles, they're going to look at certain areas in that vehicle. They're going to be checking those floor mats. And also even within your home or on carpets, it doesn't matter. I just picked the vehicle. But even bridge guy, wherever his home is, whatever his residence is, this would still occur. Everything that happened in a vehicle can happen anywhere. So it can happen to any surface. we just picked out the vehicle due to that. That is the main focus of what most people are talking about now, of processing that vehicle. And so then I went to simulating a steering wheel. And the simulated steering wheel, all I did was picked a piece of PVC pipe, which is popular. It's just plumbing pipe of a plastic type of piping for water lines in your home, which had the same dimensions of a typical steering wheel. Because Mrs. Steve wouldn't let me in her car with the steering wheel.
There's just some things you're not allowed to put blood on, okay, even if it is fake.
And so I have to be creative in my ways of creating these scenes so that it still replicates what we want to do and create a hard surface that is similar. And with blood, it doesn't really matter if it is a hard surface or if it was some of these leather dressed out steering or any type of covers or any type of vinyl or any textures in there. Blood stains all of it because we are testing for the blood itself. It doesn't really matter what the surface is. If there's contact made with it, that when you hit it with a luminol, and now the top one, the arrows across the top, those stains were created from a shirt that had been drying for 35 minutes. And the reason I waited and let that blood-stained shirt dry for 35 minutes, that would be like if you cleaned up at the crime scene itself, out of the creek, your hands were dry and you were walking to your vehicle and you were just touching your, and we just, I don't know what the timeline was, but we know that there's an opportunity that he walked out of there. If he got in the vehicle, how long did it take him to get out? And so we just have to do a guess and show what is possible. But from that stained shirt, which was dry, I set and I touched the extremely stained area from the arterial, and I'll show you the one here that says the transfer arterial spray. This is the ones I touched, and as I was setting and I was touching the steering wheel, it had dried for 35 minutes. And then I went back up here to this top one and I grabbed it on there, and I did that for about 10 or 15 minutes off and on. Now, when you look at it, you see some runoff on it. The runoff from these stains is from when I reintroduced the luminol, which is from a liquid form, and I'm spraying it, that when it reacts with the blood or synthetic blood in this case, it will pool, and it will, the more you hit it, it will liquefy again, reintroduce moisture into the stain, and you'll have slight runoff, which you can see here on the top and bottom of a little bit. And so that's what that little runoff looks like. Now on the other side, where or below the pipe, where is when the stain was fresh. That just as soon as I soaked the shirt with the synthetic blood, within 5 minutes, I sat down and I had cleaned my hands, but I sat down, and for the next 15 or 20 minutes, I would touch my chest area, then touch the steering wheel, and did that continuously for 15 or 20 minutes, and which it left a even clearer stain and more solid. There was more transfer. And so these parameters here, I absolutely, hopefully this is something that had happened with the, hit my foot.
Oh, my bad.
That you look for whenever you're processing a vehicle. You're going to check that steering wheel. If there's blood at a crime scene, you're hoping that either the individual injured himself, which if he's injured himself and he's in his own vehicle, the blood doesn't mean anything. But if there's a combination of those two bloods, one of them from the victim, one from the suspect, or a pure sample or a collection from one of the victims is on that steering wheel, of course, case closed, it's over, it's done. Same with the floor mats. It doesn't matter. That's what we're looking for when we process these vehicles, is that we're searching for what did that person touch inside that vehicle. And then after doing the steering wheel, we went to the seatbelt stain control test. And in alignment from left to right in the dark area on the top, you don't see any reaction from the luminol. There's a belt there, you just can't see it, for the reason that when I sat and did this test, it was in that low velocity shirt stain. If you'll see at the very beginning, there's very little blood stain or blood spatter on that shirt. And so when I was touching it, it really wasn't creating a much of a transfer. And so as I went and I did each of these tests, you know, that after waiting 30 minutes on that dry time and touch that belt or this restraining strap, you can see on the top. On the second one, where it was the heavy arterial spray and the transfer of the hand stain, when it was heavy, that I did the same thing, went through there, did all these tests and testing. And as I touched the belt, you can see that, yes, there was a slight reaction of stain even after 30 minutes, but it was a heavier stain, took longer to dry, and the transfer occurred. Now, on the bottom one, with the wet stain transfer, you can see that it absolutely just lit up like a Christmas tree. And hopefully, and this would occur too, because I did another test and I didn't put in here, that if your pants were wet, which I did with this one, I took and every now and then I would wet my hands and I would touch my pants. I touched the blood stain and I touched the seat belt, and it would do the same as this. I just didn't include it in this one, but because they're very similar, almost identical. And so you can see that bridge guy, if he had wet pants from crossing that creek, if he touched those pants and then touched any part of his body, no matter how dry the stain was, you could expect something between the middle stain and the bottom stain to occur on seat belts, on any surface in the car that he might have touched. Then we have to go and simulate the seat covers, which once again, Mrs. Steve wouldn't let me put blood stains or synthetic bloods in the car.
No.
And so I had to create a seat cover. And once again, it doesn't really matter what that seat cover is. It doesn't matter if it's vinyl, plastic, leather, cloth, that once blood gets on it, it's there. And of course, it can be cleaned away, but once it's there or attempted to be cleaned away, it just depends how thorough you are. And so I just used plastic bags and put them over a seat and patted the seat. And then I went in and started doing stain transfers from the clothing. Now, from the seating position, I had to say that, okay, if he had blood that was on the back of his jacket, on the back of his shirt, or where there was anything that he might have leaned up against in an outdoor crime scene, or a victim might have touched him, that Libby or Abby during Cali Thunder became a YouTuber. Thank you. That means a lot.
So much.
We want to thank all our members. It means so much, your membership on supporting us. Thank you. That means a lot. But if the victim or he had leaned against someone or during some type of struggle or any type of contact, that if he had blood on the back of his jacket or any article, that when he sat, he would have, I was checking to see if he would have any type of transfer after a substantial amount of time. And this one did surprise me, this part of the testing. I also did where you sat and on the legs, that with wet pants and with blood or synthetic blood being introduced into that as the pants dried or as water and gravity worked, what would happen to the actual seats where you're sitting beside your legs. Now, I didn't do a test with the blood on the back of the pants. I only did a test with blood to the top front of your legs, so that it would minimize, and we could see what gravity, water, and blood stain did. And that was pretty revealing also, as you'll see. This here on the left, which was probably my most surprising, that from that blood stain, and this is behind the shoulders, from shoulder tip to shoulder tip in the back, that when you sat there, and it was a 30 minutes after, and the dry time for that cotton shirt that I used, that once it was dried and I let it sit there for 30 minutes, I put it on the seat, and I sat there like it was a drive time and just moved back and forth, and tried to simulate a drive. And it lit up pretty good, even from the drive, which was surprising that when I processed this, because I'd already seen what happened with the boots, and I thought, well, the dry isn't going to do real good either. But the 30-minute drive time with evidently the motion and the rubbing on the back of that seat was able to get a pretty good stain transfer. So I was surprised by that. The leg area transfer with the drying of the clothing and letting it dry and drain for 30 minutes, and the blood being on for 30 minutes and sitting there. Once again, there was some really good dry. This is to the outside of each thigh as I sat in that seat and let it transfer over to the vehicle seat itself. So I found that pretty interesting also, and which I knew that the seat would do well with the blood and the water introduction, because I just figured that gravity and the water would take it down there, and it did. It was pretty interesting. And like I said, but the shoulders on the dry time was most surprising to me. Then I did it with another blood stain that was wet. And as you can see that, and when I say wet, that this is a fresh blood stain, less than 5 to 10 minutes that I introduced that blood to that shirt, went and got and sat in that seat between the shoulders on the back as I leaned up against the seat. And you can see that it lit up pretty good. And then when I, same thing with the stain of a fresh soaked article with water and the synthetic blood into the tops of the pants. Once again, it lit up really well. It did exactly what I anticipated. And you can see quite clearly that there's a lot of stain. And this is what law enforcement would do. They'd be looking at those seat covers. They'd be looking at that steering wheel, those floor mats, those seat belts, and any other hard surfaces on that vehicle. They'd be checking the where you open your door, where you lock or unlock your door, ashtrays, radio dials, keys, the even the key ignition. Law enforcement would go in there. They would look for this, that if his pants, which they wouldn't know that at the time, but as you process this vehicle, you're looking for and hoping for that the bad guy makes a mistake. And hopefully there were a lot of mistakes made, and hopefully law enforcement will have some of this and will discover this. And have they already? Hopefully they have. And so if you have any information about Libby and Abby, most certainly let law enforcement know. If you have a person of interest or knowledge of any type of crime or anything that possibly is associated with this crime, let law enforcement know, because they deserve justice and we need to do everything we can for them. But with that being said, we'll go into the...
Ooh, you ready?
I'm ready.
Might want to get you a sip.
All right.
All right. We're going to start with some get well wishes for Kristen.
Absolutely.
From Sweet Caroline.
And like I said, don't forget to join us over there when we leave here. And and that show starts at 9.
And Lisa, I hope Kristen is getting better and better.
She said she was when she messaged me today that she was feeling better, and she hopes Tuesday she'll be in full swing.
Good deal. That is good. All right. And SB74, info from retired LE is so insightful and drama free.
Yeah, there's not a lot, and it's not that there's anything that could bring drama to it from the crime scene part of the world, and that's what it should be. That when you go to these crime scenes, you're processing it from CSI. It's what's there, and that's all it is. There's nothing that you can either when you're processing that and you're hunting for that golden egg that's going to solve that case, and when you hit it and and that smile comes to your face, it's extremely rewarding when you get that one piece of evidence that is going to have a great impact on a case. It's absolutely amazing.
All right. And SB74, don't mean to be graphic, but our throats usually cut from behind.
It would depend what type of attack, but no, because the direction and how a person holds a knife. Some people attack from behind. Some people attack when they get control of you and forcing you and holding you down on the ground. There's, I'm sure there's mathematics and stats on it. I don't know what they are, but I've seen people equally either held down and attack from the front or attack from the rear. Probably more from the front than from the back.
All right. And wow, that's amazing. All I see on the regular boots is some dirt.
Yes. And
there's a lot of that going around up here. I can promise you.
Yeah. I'm big in the dirt.
Oh, yeah.
I own the patent on dirt.
Oh, yeah. All right. And SB74, just thinking in terms of blood spatter on the killer.
Yes.
About the throat cut from behind.
Yes. If you did it from behind, yes, there would be far less blood spatter. Might not be so much for that hand, that arm, that weapon. That would still have a significant amount. And then, of course, the transfers to other parts of your clothing, person that you would touch as you cleaned up, and even being cleaned up, if you still had that remnants and other blood spatter on you, that as you traveled and you retouched, and if you had wet pants and you reintroduced moisture to it, that you probably wouldn't see, because a lot of these testings, when I was doing the seatbelt, I couldn't see that there was any blood stains on my hands. They appear relatively clean. And so as I was testing, I didn't know what the results were going to be. But I was pretty surprised and quite happy with the results whenever I got in the dark room and lit it up with luminol.
Okay, 803 Anna. And Callie, would blood stay on a gas brake pedal after this long?
Yes, if it was introduced at the right, and like the one with the 30 or the 1 mile walk, the 15 minutes, and I walked and came in. I didn't, like I said, I rocked back and forth, and there was no transfer in those circumstances. But that doesn't mean that 10 people could do the exact same thing, and one or two of them. I mean, I haven't done the full test of numerous people and numerous tries to get a baseline. Some of them probably would, under right circumstances, it might transfer to it. But in the one test trial that I have on this, it didn't work on the 1 mile hike. On the short 50-yard ones, yes, it absolutely worked beautiful. And as I walked through the grassy areas and went over there and stood on that, you could, quite, you can see on the stained ground one, whereas you can't identify it as a footprint, but when you hit luminol, you could. And that would be the same thing, regardless if it's a floor mat or a gas pedal or a brake pedal. That stain would have showed up on all those surfaces.
And SB 74, sure hope there was luminol success in that Jeep.
I don't know. And who knows, or any vehicle. And I'm hoping at some point we do get that information, and sooner better than later.
And Shane, it must be very hard for LE to know exactly the state of BG's clothes when we don't know if there was one or more killers. Also, woods are not a confined space.
You are, yes. And um, I thought about just trying to do it in a leafy area and getting out. But when I look back on the Delphi trails and everything, and I saw, that if you left that area, you had everything from wood lines, trails to grassy areas, such as it was cemetery. And I just had to, there's so many variables we don't know, and I can't cover them all. So I just did what I did, and did it on the extremes, so that bridge guy somewhere's in between these two extremes.
And Anonymous, now this is a great show. This is what the internet is supposed to be about.
Thank you. I try to do that. We try to show you what law enforcement thinks about and how we would process it. And there's no guarantees. It's not like TV CSI. 43 minutes, they'd have this thing solved. But out here in real world, that's not the case. And more often than not, you just don't find it all the time. But sometimes you do get really lucky.
All right. And Shane, I bet LE have found them that red Jeep and checked every inch of it.
I absolutely hope so.
No
And
doubt.
not even, and when I talk about hard surfaces in the hands, that's the best thing going for LE in this case would be if he touched those pants and he had blood on him anywhere and he happened to hit those areas, and then and from adjusting the mirror to turning on the car, turning on the radio, changing gears, the gear shift knob. Think about anything. Next time you drive, I want everybody out there watching this show that when you sit in your car and you look at it, think about all the things that you touch in that car. And that's what law enforcement, we sit there, we look at everything that you touch. We already know everything you touch in a car. And from getting into the vehicle to setting that seatbelt, clicking that seatbelt shut, or locking that lock with your seatbelt, to the radios, that all that stuff is processed. And it depends on what type of crime it is. It's not always luminol. It may just be fingerprint powders or certain chemicals that you might introduce looking for certain things. But we process that stuff, and sometimes you get lucky.
All right. And Vegas, this is awesome. Thank you for the show.
It's a privilege. I hope we learned something. I learned something, and I've been doing this for years. I enjoy doing this. I absolutely do. It brings back some great memories, and also some failures too, but most of all, good memories.
And Molly, if a perp washed off things like car mats, boots, car pedals with bleach or some really strong cleaner, would it, excuse me, would it get rid of the blood not showing on luminol?
And bleach and some things have a reaction with luminol. It's a little bit different reaction, but it's very similar. It may or may not. It depends on how thorough they are. And sometimes during the cleaning processes that as they wash or they clean, they'll move that DNA profile and those blood remnants into accesses they can't see, such as under some of the edges of plastics and metals that are in the floorboard of a vehicle and around boats and boat heads. And so there's a lot of areas that if they go in there and wash it, and the same thing inside your house, that if you go in there and you wash that sink, you wash that shower, but you mop that floor, that you can push that DNA profile into the edges of the floorboards around your house, into places that you wouldn't think, and you'll never see it unless CSI goes in there, removes those items, hits it, and if it lights up, good times.
And I love this one, so that's why I'm saying it. This is from Y. Happy wife, happy life.
Yes, but you know,
Be nice.
I know, but sometimes I really do want to get in that vehicle, and she just won't let me in.
Well, this is what SP74. Thank you. We don't need Mrs. Steve's car lighting up like a Christmas tree.
Yes,
That'd
yes.
be all I need.
It's very tempting though, and hoping that she would never know. But
Yeah, no thanks. All right, and then Steffa, I hope Steve answered your question about the bleach. If not, pop back in there and I'll get him to sneak a peek at it. All right, and Shane, seemingly all the clothes are burned. That Jeep might be the only chance of DNA. If so, that's a home run. We hope.
yes, and there's a lot of things, and hopefully that law enforcement looks at, and there's other processes that hopefully they've got what they need. I mean, that's all we can hope for, and hopefully it's in the labs. That's all we can hope for.
And Anne, is it correct to assume that all those areas where the luminol is showing blood are areas from which DNA samples could be obtained? And how about good old-fashioned blood type?
Well, DNA profiles have taken away from the AB, O's, and all the other blood types out there because, and that's used to be before DNA. That was the best you could do. Secretors, non-secretors, blood types, things like that. But with this DNA stuff, that if once they get that profile, and if there's enough blood there, and is this how they, there's rumors that blood was found, but it's not enough to identify currently, and hopefully they will. Did they locate it by luminol? Shane,
hey Shane, thank you.
Thank you for the donation. That means a lot to us. That's going to help us actually a lot. Coming up, we're about to head out in another week. We're going to go up and do our Midwest trip.
All right, and
yeah, a lot of testing, and we're going to do it in Delphi also if the time permits. We still got to work with those other families, but I've got some time I'm setting aside for Delphi.
And Anne, does the artificial blood show up brighter, less bright, or the same as real blood when luminol is used?
Great question.
That is a very good question.
What you see here of what I've lit up on this shoe here is that sometimes when you light it up, it's a very faint that you can't even see it hardly at all in the picture, first generation picture of luminol. And so then you run it through a program, and you go in there and you adjust the lighting, and you see it. And then you just second generation, third generation. This boot here on the right is a second generation. That the first generation it showed up really well, and then I hit it with the luminol, or ran it through the program again to lighten it up one more time. And so a lot of times you can photograph it and you may not, because you're sitting there, you're in a dark room, you hit that camera release, and I'm using a digital camera, so I've got it programmed for a 30-second shutter lock open, that it's sitting there and it's soaking up that light for 30 seconds, all the reflective light off that luminol. And I'm continuously hitting that stained area with luminol to maximize the effect. But what you see here is not generally the first generation. It's when I go in there and run it through the programs to make it where you can see it. But that's what law enforcement does.
SP74, I think blood will stay a long time, but the Jeep was detailed at least once when it was resold.
I am, and you're right, and it could be detailed and cleaned, but even inside of residences and stuff, when it's painted over and everything, blood soaks through, and I think it's 1 in 50,000th part that all you need that luminol for it to hit and react to. So you can cover it up, you can clean it up, but it's still there. If they don't get all of it, and on those steering wheels and on those mirrors and on those radio dials, it takes pretty intensive training or cleaning to get rid of all of it. Can be done, but extremely hard.
And have you ever used the super glue technique to save or lift a fingerprint? Is that something done at the scene or in the lab? Watch a lot of forensic files.
Yes, you do. But no, they make a super glue one that you go out there and it has little cartridges that have the super glue chemicals in it that puts out any.
Thank you, Daisy.
And yeah, it's gorgeous this time of year. Hopefully you'll arrive Indian summer week. Great content. We want to get there. She wants to see the pretty leaves. I want to get there when the leaves are gone, but unfortunately they're not going to all be gone. I may have to go back when they are absolutely gone, but we had, we was on a timeline and this was the best time that we could make for it. But the super glue that you can use, what you buy over the counter and put it into an aquarium and heat it up, and it will, if there's fingerprints on glass surfaces and even on human bodies, you can fume human bodies soon after death and super glue them. And there has been fingerprints lifted in that process. It's a very short time frame that can occur in, but it can happen. And but most of your hard surfaces, your plastic, your glasses, your guns, all those surfaces can be super glued, and you have to do it in a well ventilated area. Don't do this at home. Do not super glue in your kitchen and heating it up and trying to process fingerprints. It is extremely harmful.
You don't want to breathe that.
Yeah, no.
All right, so now I've got 3 questions about the Jeep. So we're just going to rattle them off, okay? All right, so Stefa, how long after the murders did they sell the Jeep?
No idea.
Then I've got move clocks. Did police find the Jeep?
I would expect so.
Then Shane says he posted on Facebook about his new truck in July, I think, Stefa. And there we go.
But the search warrants were done within a few weeks, the original one. And then when they went back and 2019 and then in 2020, when the transcripts were released. So they had 2 opportunities here that they focused on declines well advanced of now. So it's not something that's current but they may go back and reprocess it again. Who knows? But they had 2 opportunities back then to do it with that first search warrant. And then again, when they took a new direction of social media, they became aware of the Anthony shots. When law enforcement became aware of the Anthony shots link, that investigative crew would have absolutely wanted everything processed, because is this the link? Is this the motive? And let's process everything. Let's get the search warrants. Let's go out there and do it. I have no idea if they did or not. I'm only hoping and speculating that they did, because I most certainly would have been pressing for that. That, okay, we've got someone that now has a link to them, that talked to them morning of. We have that they looked up certain information day of. They were in Vegas looking up how long does DNA last on a body. And you had all the probable cause in the world with just that information to go get a search warrant for the residences, the vehicles, everything they own or had touched forever. And hopefully they did so.
And Callie, I'm surprised they never found any DNA on the girls, hair, skin, blood, etc.
And that's true. And that doesn't mean they won't. As far as the clothing and things or whatever they have, nail clippings that they may have, that's pretty standard that when you go in there and you process and the forensics goes and they clip the nails and they have all the clothing. They may go in there and at some point, because when you're looking for DNA, it's not something that you can see, and it's hit and miss. I had to send a passenger side airbag 4 or 5 times to the crime lab before they tested the area I wanted to test it. And finally they found that DNA profile of the murderer. But I knew it was on there. It could not have not been on there for the airbag the passenger in the car shot the driver. There was a crash, airbags deployed. It struck the passenger. You could see the burn pattern or the transfer pattern of skin onto the airbag. And you could see the gun imprint. You could see his hand. And so we knew DNA was on there, but it took, before they could find the right profile on it and enough profile, it took, like I said, 4 or 5 trips before we identify it. So it's extremely hard when you have that articles that made contact with a suspect. Do they have a DNA profile? I would absolutely think that somewhere on those clothing of Libby and Abby, our suspect's profile is there. I strongly believe it is.
And Steffa at Shane, I wonder when he sold it. This is priceless. I would not want to be the new owners of that Jeep.
And yeah, and like I said, they may go back and process it again. I'm hoping they've already processed it first or second warrant, but if not, they may go back and do it again.
And this here's a good idea from Molly. You need to go to the local junkyard and get some seats or a junked out car for experiments. There you go.
I'm just frugal. I'm cheap, and
he'd rather use mine.
Yeah, but like I said, I can do most of this stuff in outdoor and recreate the stuff and do it as low cost as possible. Luminol is what costs, but everything else I try to do is, you know, a few T-shirts here and there.
Yeah. Move clocks. Why would he wait 5 years to sell? If that was the car, I'd burn it immediately. Yeah, who knows? Yeah,
I mean, you know, he may have thought, and it may not have been that vehicle. I mean, we're relying on the Jeep thing from one of the biggest liars in the state of Indiana, that what information he's giving is true. It could have been another vehicle. It could have been not even, you know, we don't even know. I suspect Kagan extremely that he had some part in it for the fact of what he looked up and his interactions and creating a false alibi. It does not make any sense why he would do all of those things to the extent that he did. Everyone else and all their accusations, we don't know. And will we know at some point? I'm hoping so.
SB 74 at Cali, LE has located and processed the red Jeep. Then Shane says he sold one and got a new gray truck mid-2017. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, and this is from Deborah. Thank you for your hard work. One of my favorite couples. Oh. Also, thank you for your prayers. Please pray. I have a very hard decision to make next week.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely, without a doubt. And everybody else, if you're of the praying sort, please do so.
And you'll make the right decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Lisa at Steve, you make Mrs. Kravitz say, Mr. Steve is at it again. Yes. At Anna, a killer who stabs, if he is particularly energetic, sloppy, and enraged, is likely to get blood splatter on his back.
Yes, when you're cast off and
Yes.
Blood, yes, it goes everywhere, and it can. And then we sadly that may be one of the possibilities. But if that's all that law enforcement has to place their hopes on, that yes, let's hope that he did have something that transferred onto a possibly the back seat of the car.
Mm-hmm. All right, hold on. I got to update this. And the next one is hysterical from Steffa. I had to show this. From Steffa, very good information. I wonder if they give you another car if they take your car into custody and you're not a suspect. That would be a no.
No. Every car we ever processed, and we did process vehicles that were re-owned, we went and processed it. And no, I don't know what the insurance world looks at that.
Nada.
Oh, okay.
All right. And Shane, 26th of June, 2017, TK posted, just traded my Jeep, got a new one. Interesting. Feel sorry for the new owners. And Vegas, what if he had blood on the bottom of his boots and tracked it in his house? It's almost been 6 years. Could it still be there?
If it fell within a certain timeline and it hadn't dried, or he had on, like I showed you of the looking at the bottom of the soles of the boots, that if it's up in those crevices and you ever go and you get those boots and you get that blood resaturated with moisture, does it have the potential to leak back out onto a floor? Absolutely. And so, yes, that's a possibility. And I will be testing that possibility in the future on the boots I have now. That's on my test list of things to institute moisture into the bottom of the boots, like early morning dew, and then come in. Although it won't be in our house, but I'll find a surface I can bring into it.
SP74. These are great demos.
Thank you.
Sweet Caroline. So would Ellie do these tests to the girls' clothes too?
I would expect so, with the proper luminol. There's some luminol and there's some chemicals out there that are destructive to DNA. Law enforcement's not going to use them. They're going to use what's proper. And hopefully they have, and hopefully they've located everything they think. And as tests get better and chemicals get better and advances are made in science, hopefully they will find it eventually.
And Anna, Jack the Ripper cut throats from above, victims on ground, first cut aimed toward ground or street, so JTR avoided blood stains.
Yes.
Ick. And Steph, how do you even tell what is important at a crime scene? There are so many items, and something small could be the key to solving the case.
And that's the thing, is that you just collect everything. And that's one of the things with the recent car case here in Georgia, that news crews have been going there and collecting evidence, and that was left behind. I don't understand that.
That case is bugging him, y'all.
Yes. I don't know how you leave anything behind. Just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And Kathleen, this is so sad. Forgive me, and this is sad, but my uncle cut his own throat to commit suicide when he was drunk. It can happen. I can't imagine, but it does happen. That's awful. I'm so sorry. Anna, also with throat cutting, the head needs to be in a certain position so the great vessels are most available.
Yes, it depends on, yeah, you're correct in certain, yes.
And Molly, there's a lot of Tide and loads of laundry being done at Mr. and Mrs. Steve's house. Molly, that is a constant.
Yes, like I said, I'm the king of dirt.
Yeah. Who needs a kid when you got a grown one? Let's see here. Single Mama 4. Why do they want to use strangulation a lot?
Certain individual, certain fantasies. It depends what type of psychopath and animal predator you're looking at. Some of them like certain weapons. Some of them like certain hands-on. And it just depends upon the fantasy of that individual, such as what BTK was or what Bundy was. All of them have their own little signatures and quirks and what their fantasies are fed by. And some of them do like suffocation, some not. You just, once you realize the type of person, then of course it starts building a certain signature that he owns.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me update. All right. And Molly, amazing that your hands looked clean and that it left so much from the luminol.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do that. And you know, that's for the fact that they, the individual bridge guy or any suspect that creates and does such a crime, they're not going to always realize what they're doing. And that's the best thing that that works on the side of law enforcement.
And you're going to love this one. Lisa, I think I will skip trick or treat at Steve's house. If you only knew.
It's not Steve, it's Mrs. Steve you have to be aware of.
Not necessarily. I had help. But we do enjoy Halloween, or we used to. In the younger days, we enjoyed Halloween. That was fun.
Yeah. She loved terrifying children. Don't understand.
No, I love kids. Kids are a passion. Obviously, kids are a passion. I wouldn't be doing Cyclops. But Halloween is fun. I'm not gonna lie. Halloween is fun. All right, and double rainbows. Awkward question. Regarding time of the month, we can use cold water and soap to rid bloodstains if doing so immediately. Is that just invisible to the naked eye and blood DNA still remains?
Yes, it does.
Ooh. All right. Learned something, double rainbows. I didn't know that either. And Anne, does the extreme, bold violence of this crime lead you to think it was a premeditated murder? For example, bringing knives with intent to inflict fatal wounding. That was a tongue twister.
When you look at, and we don't know what the exact motive was. Of course, there's a lot of theories about all different types of motive being to aid in your most admirable and needed help. The families needing your specialized aid. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you so much.
And we appreciate that. And I'm looking forward. We're making all the arrangements and going to work with those families. And hopefully the third family will be able to get back in town in time that I can go up there and see them also. But if not, I think they even two of the families are thinking about coming down here to Georgia to take a break and come down and see me also. So I have a couple opportunities to interact with these families in the next few months. But it's something that we feel that we have a strong desire to do, and we're going to do it.
All right, let's see here. Trying to keep up, y'all. Y'all are working me tonight.
Good.
I heard that. All right, and Kathleen, can blood be so diluted or minute that luminol would not pick up, but you could still get DNA from it, or vice versa?
I'm sure there's whatever that threshold is. That's above my pay grade. But I know that luminol, I think the ratio is 1 in 50,000 parts is all that luminol will work to that diluted stage. How much do they need for the full profile? I don't know. Like I said, that would be for someone that has a higher understanding of the DNA profile. And that's, like I said, I don't know. I can just tell you that that's a stain, and check it.
And Anna, my relative worked on the CSI TV show. They had a fancy forensic light that showed all body fluids. Nice hotel room was spattered everywhere. Complained and got a penthouse room. Same thing.
I have one of those lights. Actually, I'm going to be taking with me also, but you're right. But on the other body fluids, not blood, but other body fluids, everything from spit, urine, and everything does react with the other light and the alternate light sources. And with the proper filters, that yes, it will light up. Although it's not the pretty blue, it lights up in different wave spectrum, but yeah, it will light up.
All right. So Molly asked if it picks up bodily fluids, phlegm, and saliva and all
yes,
that. So
that's
yes,
the
okay.
other.
So
yes,
Molly.
That's the other light source that I have also.
Okay. All right. And Anne, does it seem odd to you that LE hasn't gotten a search warrant for KK's house and or TK's house if KK lived there? I think that's right, but they arrested KK, but not a search warrant.
They went and got the dog also at another time, so I don't know. And no one knows exactly what search warrants were taken and when they were taken and how they were handled. I can only speculate that, knowing the information we know from the transcripts and from the interview and what the officer said, that it seems almost impossible they wouldn't have executed search warrants, and I mean multiple search warrants. Now, if they didn't, I'm at a loss of words. But from the word, because like I said, and I have always said that interviews are goal oriented. You can tell from the questions what the beliefs of law enforcement are and where they're going and why they're going there. And so if they're going along that path, they're also going to be running and trying to do everything they can forensically. And they'll be obtaining those because they knew those. Just because they asked the question doesn't mean they don't already know the answer. And so just because law enforcement asks doesn't mean, oh, we want you to tell us. You're the sole source of that information. So there's, a lot of times because they're looking for you to mess up when they're interviewing you. And I'm hoping that was the case with Kagan.
Okay. All right, you got to tell me when we still got.
Yeah, we got another 10, 15 minutes.
17 or so. Okay,
Okay.
so that's right. All right, so Kimmy, I was told that they did process the Jeep, but TK seems like the type that would have a vehicle detailed. They use some heavy-duty chemicals in car detailing.
Yes, and if they had found something way back then, you would think that it would be a done deal by now. So
yeah, no kidding. All right, and you're going to love this one. SP74, Mrs. Steve, next time Steve borrows your car, luminol it. I'm beginning to think I might need to.
Yeah.
And Fig, hey Fig, this is exciting. Will blood still show up in the Jeep 6+ years later? Sorry if you already answered that.
Yes. Cold case crime scenes, whatever you find inside of a house, just as long as it's protected, yes, blood will, if it's there, it will still luminol up. And it's just a matter of law enforcement finding it, removing that. You can go in there and remove certain parts of that vehicle in areas where blood may have been pushed, and it will light up, and you can process that. So have they done that? I don't know. But yes, the time doesn't do anything, although there is a possibility that enough chemicals over the years may, because DNA does degrade.
And Anna, just finding blood staining in old vehicles is only part of it. A Jeep is likely to be used for hunting, etc. They find stains. They have to DNA test everything.
Oh, yes. If you process certain areas of my house, wherever I've processed deer and over the years, yes, you would think, oh, my goodness.
I live in a crime scene, right? Thanks. Okay, and Anna, super glue produces a cyanide gas when heated.
Yeah, extremely dangerous. Don't be heating super glue.
And Cop Facts, what a great live. You two are a perfect team.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor for you to be here.
Appreciate it.
And also for you, Fig, and everybody. It's an honor for all of you guys being here. Means a lot to me.
All right, and Fig, TK would keep the Jeep at his mom's house.
That's
We
interesting.
saw that somewhere, didn't we? Or no?
No, I didn't know that. That's interesting. I take it on Pawpaw is one you're talking about out near a country club.
And Kristen, behind the crime door, Steve is so amazing. He's the real deal.
Thank you. And don't forget, guys, that we're going to be leaving this show in a few minutes, and all you guys come over there. And I think she's really close to getting 2,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to her, when you get over there tonight, when you follow me over, hit that subscribe. Let's try to get her up there as fast as we can. Make her really happy when she comes back on Tuesday.
And Ann, wow, Mr. Steve, that's a fantastic story about the airbag DNA. In other words, that you had to be persistent to get the right testing results. Great work. And he did. That made him so mad.
They were angry. I had to go down there because they told me, they said, okay, you come down here and you show us, because whenever we sent it down, they would check certain areas. They did not check the area where it wasn't really a blood stain. They were testing blood stain areas. And I told them, I want you to test this discolored area that wasn't blood. And I anticipated from the airbag that it was a skin burn and it wasn't blood. It was just the skin tone. And from the skin oil, or oils contained within the skin. And sure enough, it popped in. But I was so happy. And I wrote a great letter to the lab tech to her boss, and because she was very considerate when talking to me and understood the quest, and she did a great job when she found that DNA.
And Anna, with everyone bundled up for winter, there would have been less chance of DNA transfer than in seasons when people wear less.
Yes, other than if there's a substantial amount of injuries, and from what the FBI said in that search warrant, that we can only hope that there was enough substantial victims' DNA transferred over to the offender.
And Callie, touch DNA is so new, but I wonder if that would help in this case. I'm sure Ellie has already done this, but it's interesting to think about.
Yes, and you have to look that they would go under these cases, on these code cases at some time will go under peer review. And I think this case was sent to the GBI at one point also. For whatever reason, was it just a peer review or whatever? And will that happen again? I believe so and hope so.
And Anna, I don't think even the Klein clown show is stupid enough to drive a bright red vehicle to a planned crime.
Yeah. Well, and that may be absolutely. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I saw that picture. That was a great picture.
Yeah. Fig has a picture of the Jeep in front of TK's house in 2018 via satellite.
I don't know who put it out there, but I saw that picture. And, amazing.
Right. And Teresita, in your opinion, are we banking too much on KK and TK being directly involved in the girls' murders?
I'm banking a lot on KK. Now, anyone and everyone else, like I said, unless they're mentioned into the, we don't know. But KK, like I said, there's so much that he did that makes no sense. And, you know, that why would you search for the things he searched? And why would you I mean, he's an animal to start with. And that we have to look at most certainly about his, did he have a motive? Did he create a false alibi? And like I said, when you start stacking all those cards up, you got to say TK has a strong probability of knowing more.
All right. And Fig, yeah, hard to believe the Jeep was at the CPS building. Red car out in the open like that. Not smart.
And yeah, I mean,
it was.
Who knows? And like I said, we're trying to get that information from one of the biggest liars that's ever been born in the state. I don't even know where he was born at. I doubt he would even tell the truth about that.
And Aaron, yeah, you don't get a car if your car is in custody. I had a car stolen and it was retrieved, but whoever stole it used it to commit a chain of robberies and a murder. My car was taken for 6 months.
Wow.
Jeez Louise.
You're lucky.
Yeah. And Anne, weird thing is, Ellie will sometimes sell evidence after a conviction is obtained. FBI sold Unabomber's cabin, which they had unassembled and reassembled in the courtroom, to the News Museum in D.C.
And when to Aaron Brown, I'm saying you're lucky for the fact that whoever stole your car was a thief and was a murderer also. So you was in close proximity to a very dangerous individual.
Yeah, no kidding. That's scary. All right. So now you've had some more pop in here. So hold on 1 second. Let's see here. Okay, we've already done that one.
I want to appreciate everybody coming in tonight. And like I said, we're going to be going over there. I'm co-hosting tonight for Kristen, and we will be someone else is joining us tonight. I forget who, CHH, I think. And so we're going to be talking about some topics about motive and things, and look forward to that. And I want everyone to remember Kristen and support her as much as you can. Follow us over, join, subscribe to her, and we'll continue the conversation over there. If you have any questions, I'll answer everything I can.
Yep. Hold on 1 second. Is Quentin the little boy that's missing from Georgia? Is that the
4-year-old?
Well, that's what I don't know.
It probably is. We have in Savannah, there's a little 4-year-old, but the FBI says they don't need any more volunteers.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah. So
Okay, so hold on one second. I'm cruising to see if there's anything. Let's see here. Oh, and while I'm doing this, if you are a commander and you're not part of the Facebook private group and you want to be, send me your Facebook name to Steve at truecrimeweb.com. And I will get you up there. Okay, here, this is what I was looking for. This is from Shane. Is father and son DNA a 50-50 match? And if you don't have a full profile, could it be either person?
I know that I don't understand everything there is to know. I'm not a DNA expert, but I know you supposedly get half from your father and you get half from your mother. And so you have a mixture of that. But that would be for a question that had for someone that knows all that. Like I said, DNA came along. I was working prior to full knowledge of everything, how DNA was going. And there's been a lot of advances made in it, but I don't know the exact. I know that other than you get some from your mama and you get some from your daddy, and there's different types of DNAs and all this stuff out there now, and they test in different ways for different types. And science has come a long way, and I'm looking forward to that DNA solves a lot of these cold cases. But anyway, we're going to be getting out of here, and I thank y'all. And like I said, follow us over there. I'm going to be going over there in a few minutes, and we can talk about the topics for tonight for a Christmas show, and I'll answer whatever I can about tonight that hasn't been answered. And y'all stay safe. If you have any information about Libby and Abby, and we can get this psychopath, this animal off the street, let law enforcement know they deserve justice. And I'll see y'all in a few days. Actually, I'll see some of y'all in a few minutes. And
all right. Thank you, mods. There's no way I could have done it without y'all. And thank you, chatters. Yep. Wow.
Yeah. We want to thank our members, all our supporters, everybody that comments, that sends me emails. All y'all play such a large part of this community. And we thank you.
You make it worth it. Thank you, guys.